Good evening, friends. Welcome. And today we have Desh back with us. Good evening, sir.
Yeah, hi. Hi, Meena.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
Always good
Always
to
a
come here.
pleasure to have you.
Same here.
Yeah. So, Desh, starting with yesterday, now Islamists are giving an open call to slaughter ISKCON devotees, and they led a rally last night and raised the slogans "Catch ISKCON one by one, slaughter them," and also the abducting of Chinmoy Prabhu of ISKCON, and they call it an arrest. All this being done by the Nobel Prize winner Mohammad Yunus. It's chilling. I mean, this man has not even protested or anything. He's just spoken about what's happening in Bangladesh. And even while sitting in the van, which took the Prabhu away, even then he was saying that please have peace. I don't want any fighting or violence. So you look at one side, you have absolute peace, and on one side total violence, because they killed a lot of Hindus and they want to eliminate Hindus. They destroyed Kali temple. So a lot of things happening. Desh, can you speak about that?
Yeah, I think, like in my view, I mean, this is extremely sad what's going on. Like you're showing, even the a lawyer who was going to defend Chinmaya Prabhu was actually hacked to death, and it was all done during the time when Chinmaya Prabhu was being taken, like in the van, and people were protesting why that is being done. And see, over time, what has happened is, see, when 1971, when the Operation Searchlight started by Pakistan, at that time there was a very clear targeting of Hindus, and they went on for a long time doing that. And like what is happening today that Muhammad Yunus is doing is actually a continuation of all that. So, so it is. I mean, when this coup was being done from taking Sheikh Hasina away, at that time it was very clear that uh, two different forces had come together. One was the American deep state, or their establishment, and the second was the ISI. What is happening today is actually the unfinished agenda of Pakistan. So they are trying to actually do what they could not do in 1971. And I think it is incumbent on the current establishment to actually finish off all the things that Indira Gandhi could not finish off in 1971. And she had her own political agenda. In 1971, if you read the book of Gary Bass, um, right, the blood telegram, it is very clear, where it has been said very clearly that uh, the there were verbal instructions from the army to finish off all the Hindus. There were very clear instructions. Uh, 3 to 400,000. In fact, like it probably goes more. Like women were taken, put in rape camps, and tortured for months and weeks on end, till a time when they just could not be tortured anymore. So that is how these guys have been. That is how this whole country came into being. And all those people who were siding with Pakistan's ISI at that time, which the blood telegram very clearly establishes, and which even the email, like the telegrams or the communiques back from that consulate back to the US, also very clearly established that these guys were being uh, sent to like finish off one side of the whole society there, and anybody who was in the intelligentsia who could have kind of made that country into a secular country was also killed. In fact, the first attack was done on a temple there, uh, there in Dhaka, where the priest and a lot of the devotees were burnt alive, like in that temple. That was the first attack that happened in Dhaka in Operation Searchlight. So it is not the first time that this has happened, and somehow Sheikh Hasina was trying to stop it. Like it was very tough because not many people know that Pakistan had this act called the Enemy Property Act, where they could take away the property of anyone that they wanted, and like this had resulted between 1965 to 2006. They 12 lakh households, Hindu households, around 60 lakh Hindus, they lost over 26 lakh acres of land just because of this. On an average, in that,
So, are you also connecting it to Waqf?
no, that's not actually work, but like what that was like something very different. That was, see, work is something that the Muslim organizations do. This was actually done by the state. It was the law of the land that
No, but
once you.
did it spring out of that?
Yeah. So it didn't come out of work directly, but I think it was done more in terms of like maybe it did. Like that could have been the thought that, uh, but the sad thing is the initial idea of waqf, the way it was envisaged in the theological sense was very different. It has been weaponized in India, definitely, but this was to target the Hindus, to make them as enemies of the state, and then take away their land. That's what Pakistan did throughout. The worst example was of Dhirendranath Datta. He was an exceptional, like good or bad, however you want to call it. He was the one who like was an MP from like that area near at Dhaka, and when the 1971 uh, like actually like when in 1946 the direct action day happened, I read his entire like eyewitness account, and it is extremely disturbing. And despite that, Dhirendranath Datta like went over to Bangladesh and stayed there, and actually was like promoting Bengali as a national language for Pakistan until 1971, when he and his son was like were taken and tortured and killed off. His land, his home, was actually taken over after 1971 by the Bangladesh government under the Enemy Property Act, even his property. So you can see that over time, Hindus have been targeted very, very clearly. There have been so many like massacres even after that. There is a
But
whole
what is the
list.
reason? What is the reason they are the most peaceful community? Why have they been under attack for so long?
Um, like I think it's more of like religious and bigotry reasons, because they were very clear that there is no place for Hindus in quote unquote Islamic land, and that was the reason why they were being like finished off. Over time, from however it was 22-28% of Hindus came down to just 2%, and or I think 7-8% within like Bangladesh. But the thing is that this actually stems from their understanding of uh, their theology and how it should be run. Uh, so, so in that sense, over time, like somehow Sheikh Hasina was like trying to stop all this, and that is why she went after even Jamaat Islami guys who were involved in the 1971 massacres, Operation Searchlight. She did, get the capital punishment for quite a lot of them. Pakistan was not very happy. So they were always looking for an opportunity to actually turn that around, which is something that they are trying to do now. And I think there will come a time very soon when the Indian government will have no other option, just like Indira Gandhi had no other option, but to intervene, because the kind of uh, you know news that is coming out, the kind of massacres that are happening of Hindus is just unbearable, and
So how
nobody.
do they do it, Desh? Because see, for so long they've been existing as brothers and sisters, and suddenly just one section of your community have become Hindus and the others Muslims. So is it very similar to what's happening in UP Sambal? where a political party is behind the stone pelting and killing of policemen.
Yeah. So thing is that there are three things which are always involved in this, right? Like one is that there needs to be like one political party that goes after this kind of agenda unapologetically. Second, they need to have the forces on the ground. And third, they need to have the clergy in place, which actually, promotes or propagates this whole thing. When I went through the whole history of partition, I was trying to look for, uh, like my, question was very simple, that you cannot even take out, person who has taken a rent, like your house on rent. It's very tough. Like it's very tough to take that, person out. How could they throw out more than 1 million people from their homes during partition? And the reason was that there was this quasi-military force that was created by Muslim League called the Muslim League National Guard, which nobody talks about. It was around 60 to 70,000 people strong. They were actually given training for arson, for stabbing, and for killing while the jeep is moving. So they acquired a lot of jeeps and lorries and petrol, and that is how they were trained. That is why the Hindus and Sikhs, despite the fact that they could have fought back, like if only their neighbors had attacked, they could not, because they were against a military force.
The
This
jeeps.
entire National Guard was actually later on absorbed within the Pakistani army. So so in Kashmir, the same thing happened. They brought in forces from outside, Lashkar-e-Toiba and the rest of the people, and they used the existing, religious, like organizations, as well as like mosques, to disseminate the message, and that is what they kept on doing. And they used the locals as the the petri dish, or like some kind of support force. And these guys came and did whatever they had to do, and the support was there from the local, like people. And that is exactly what is happening there as well. It's the attacks against the Hindus have been going on for a long time now in Bangladesh. Somehow it never came out. See, in 1971, when the American ambassador very clearly wrote that the instructions are to finish off the Hindus, and actually the main people who are being killed are Hindus. It was Indira Gandhi who actually played it down. Indira Gandhi was the one who gave misleading statements saying that every religious, like persuasion, Hindus, Muslims, Buddhists, and Christians were involved. They weren't. There were very clear, explicit, instructions from the Pakistani army and the ISI to do that, to target the Hindus. And that has been going on. The more we downplay that, the more it comes and bites us back.
Yeah,
Like one event after another, one
yeah.
genocide after another. We
Yeah.
cannot play down. This is the way it is.
So, Desh, when you look at two things, one is the Chinmay Prabhu being abducted and then later called as an arrest because of treason, and then you have the destruction of the temple. So these are two symbolic messages that they're trying to very strongly give, saying that they will remove Hinduism from its roots, and Hindus, won't exist in Bangladesh. Okay. Now, if you look at what's happening in UP in Sambal, this is also something that they are telling us that, see, we cannot find out if there is a temple under a mosque, and even if court comes or where whoever comes to search, we will make sure that they are eliminated. So what you see is also these people had country guns with them in Sambal, so which means that they're very well equipped by the opposition to to make sure that the police cannot overpower them. So moving on to another
Mm.
piece of news, uh, Desh, is that, as you see, there was a huge victory in Maharashtra, and Mahayuti is back in power. Now there is a very sinister message going around that these people are going to convey a false narrative using disinformation, as an election fraud happening in Maharashtra. They've been asked to flood the social media with fake data, video, and articles, and this is the first step. They're planning a very long and sinister move, and we've all already noticed this in social media since yesterday. All the people from Congress and from Shiv Sena have started saying that see, there's EVM fraud. Now, when the courts have clearly said that see, when you win, there is no EVM fraud, as in Jharkhand. But when you lose, you say that it is EVM fraud. So, mischief is at so many levels. You have mischief happening in Bangladesh, Samhal, and now in Maharashtra as well. Could you speak something about this, Desh?
Yeah, I think, see, the EVM fraud idea, all these years that they were actually ruling over the country, it was very clear that they were doing the ballot fraud. All throughout those times, we all know how the ballots were stolen, how the ballots were falsified, like fraudulently added, and the ballot stations used to be taken over. They want that kind of a situation, back again. And even in the U.S., the Democratic Party and the establishment that they had was very clearly going after the mail-in ballots. The mail-in ballots became the basis for them to push votes which should not have been cast. I know, like one of my neighbors, I was talking to him, and he was saying, "I received two ballots for my mother. She already died in 2019. So he received mail-in ballots for his mother that he could have filled and sent for a mother who had already died in 2019. If this is what happened to him, I'm not sure how many others like would have had the same thing. So the point is that paper and this kind of untrackable, unauditable mechanisms are very easy to use by the people who want to do fraud. That is exactly Congress was masters of all this. They started going down because of how the EVMs, when they came in, they somehow put the power in people's hands. Now the thing is different. So they cannot do all the fraud that they could. That is why they are doing this kind of a push. Now the thing is that uh, this, like in my view, like this is my personal view, that you know this establishment or the deep state that we are talking about, that has a very similar modus operandi no matter where it is. And the modus operandi is this, that they push, they do all the fraud that they have to do. If somebody loses the target that they are choosing, and that person even says that there was fraud in the elections, they use that and say this is disinformation and this person should be thrown out of the entire political scene. They try to do that with Donald Trump. They have done that with Bolsonaro in Brazil, and they were actually planning to do the same thing with Modi ji. Thank God Modi ji didn't lose and he came back. But it's that
Here,
kind of narrative
yeah,
there.
a small interruption here. Desh, very interesting what you're saying. It didn't happen with Modi because, again, see, what I feel is that the social media in India is very, very active. And
Yeah.
already warnings of Soros and the deep state had come in even before that. So people were very prepared for this. Whereas in other countries, I don't think they were so aware or they wouldn't have been so active. Do you think that could be the reason?
Actually, the thing was that in those cases, the establishment, see, in the US, the elections, I keep on telling everyone, and that is why most of the people, even analysts in India, get it all wrong, like about US, is because this was not a Republican versus a Democratic election. This was a deep state versus anti-deep state election. So even when in the first term of Trump, when Trump was there, at that time he was not able to do whatever he wanted to do because a lot of people, even in his own administration, were part of that quote unquote deep state. And when the Democrats were there, obviously they wouldn't have allowed him to do what he wanted to, because they were alarmed at what he was trying to do. Now they are even more alarmed. So because like he's going to finish off all their ways to make money, to do all those things, get power. So so the thing is that these guys, uh, that is how they like actually try to do. They go, somehow Modi ji was saved because he won, and I think he understood their game plan. He understood the game plan of how and where they would have tried to do any hacking or some kind of action that they wanted to do. But like somehow he saved the whole thing at the last moment, because I have a feeling that like there was something going on at the highest level, like globally, like that they were trying to impact the elections. They tried to do through narratives. They would have done even on the ground, like I don't know how, but like this is my belief. So now they have come to a point where they just cannot uh, do anything, because the power is with someone who's not going to take it lying down, who's going to give it back as well. So I think that is why these people are even more worried that there is no way that they can ever win. Once Trump comes for next 4 years, their their entire fate is sealed, because they'll have no backup from all the subversion that has been going on in India, that has been going on in Bangladesh, that will have to stop once Trump comes. And I'll tell you like another thing why ISKCON has been singled out as an organization within um, Bangladesh is also because, like, this is my personal, you know, thought. See, Yunus is a very, very good friend of the Clintons. Yunus has been cultivated by the Clintons. Yunus has like been part of that whole cabal for a long time. In fact, it was in the presence of Bill Clinton that he came on the stage and introduced all the anarchists, saying that these are the guys who did the revolution. Now, in terms of Clinton has been targeting Tulsi Gabbard for a long time. Even during the democratic elections, that's what she did. She called her the Russian asset, and that attack has been very personal, like which I've never seen Hillary Clinton do against like other people. It's a very personal attack on Tulsi Gabbard, and I think part of the reason was because Tulsi Gabbard had left the Democratic Party co-chair and went and backed Bernie Sanders against Hillary Clinton. So she took it very personally. Since then, it has been a personal attack against Tulsi Gabbard. We all know Tulsi Gabbard is part of ISKCON. She is a devotee of um Swami Prabhupada. So I'm just thinking, why ISKCON? Why ISKCON? And the only answer that I could get is because Tulsi Gabbard is now going to be the director of national intelligence. They are not going to get the benefits that they have been getting. So this is like going against and teaching her a lesson even before she takes on.
Also, Desh, do you think somewhere that, by dragging Modi into this conflict, already Biden is, planning to send nuclear weapons to Ukraine, and by dragging Modi also into this, whole situation, another world war can be ignited?
Yeah, that is a very big possibility, because I think the calls for India to go and take action in Bangladesh will rise. The um, the atrocities, the level of atrocities will also rise. So there will be very strong reason for the Indian government to get involved. Now, in that situation, there is also another factor that of China. Now, in China would not want India to be part of the the Bangladesh or do anything there, because it probably would fancy that once the entire funding or subversion is gone from Bangladesh by US, they can actually enter and like do whatever they want to do, because that's what they were trying to do. So there is a conflict or of interests which are going on like within Bangladesh. So they might want to exploit that to put India against China, and they've already tried to like do whatever they are trying to do within Ukraine, and it has been escalated now when they're talking about sending the nukes also there. Like that, I think is the ultimate point where the things can go really wrong.
So moving on to, I don't know whether you saw this, Desh, how Rahul Gandhi behaved yesterday. Let me just take out the picture and then just a second.
Hmm.
Yeah. So here you'll see the Indian opposition leader in parliament. Rahul Gandhi refuses to greet the assembly with namaste. And you will see it seems as though he's allergic to anything that Indians do. And this is in the presence of the president, and he doesn't even acknowledge her. So it shows very clearly that he is neither an Indian nor does he respect anything that's Indian, or has any respect for the country itself. Could you speak about this? And then from here, we could move on to his attack against Adani.
Right. So, um, like, I think this actually shows that whatever uh, ideas and whatever tools, whatever ways that he had, and however he was trying to attack the Modi government as well as the Indian interests, he has lost. So now he has a point. He is at a point where he clearly sees, uh, his complete defeat. And with the new, case that has been registered in Allahabad High Court about his own, citizenship, and there is actually a company registered in UK called Backups Limited. There, his name is there, his date of birth is there, his citizenship is there, British citizenship, and that document is from 2005. So his reaction in that photograph that you showed was almost like of a guy who was defeated but yet defiant, and very arrogant, right? Like he looks very clearly very arrogant and defiant, and like downright uh, like very like malicious in the way he like wants to like deal with things. He has no grace the way he behaves, and like that is the biggest problem that most of the Congress like people have had, because they have lost all credibility. And I think as things go on, they'll keep on losing more. Once, see, if all the information from Italy ever comes out, if all the information from US comes out, there is like very little room for this whole cabal to stay the course that they have done all the time. Many people tell me that if the Gandhis go away, the Congress can actually get better. And I tell them that they are, group of thieves. Nobody, one thief does not believe in the other, and so on. The only reason why they stay together is because there is a bigger thief who rules over them, and they can put their hat, like in his court. But otherwise, if the Gandhis go away, do you think Shashi Tharoor will ever work under Kharge, or Kharge work under Shashi Tharoor, or any of these work under Digvijay Singh? No, they won't.
Very interesting here, Desh, because see, I saw a small excerpt, from Lalit Modi's interview, where he says that when he was talking about IPL and different companies wanting to buy the different cricket groups, and apparently when he was planning all this, suddenly the name of Sunanda Pushkar propped in.
Yeah.
and she did not have any money to put in. And yet she wanted a huge share, of whatever they were planning to get. And the moment Lalit Modi saw this, he refused. When he refused, he's saying that he got a call immediately from Shashi Tharoor saying that, see, if you don't do this, we will do income tax raid. ED will come to your door, you will be jailed. So,
Right.
was this the kind of way Congress functioned at that time? Because it's not Shashi Tharoor speaking. Shashi Tharoor is speaking with the power of someone else behind him.
Right. Because see, the thing was that all these have evidence against each other. So that is why all of these people have been working together because they have a like bigger power to report to, a bigger name to report to, which is the Gandhis, and they have been anointed as the kings, and these are the serfs, like if you will. So they have their own serfdom that they keep ruling, and because they are part of this whole cabal, they keep on perpetuating their power the way they have always done. Now, in that sense, uh, Congress had the benefit of having the media, the mindset, the intelligentsia, as well as the intelligence agencies always in their pocket. They also had the businesses in their pocket. See, the reason why they are against, like I know we'll come to Adani next, why they are against Adani and the rest of people, uh, businesses, is because these are the businesses which ensure that India will grow, because all the businesses that are there have had been working or were aligned with the Congress. So to align them with the national interest and to have them grow was not easy. And that is why it is not easy to trust any of the larger groups that they will take on the Indian, national interests like in their stride. Uh, so in that sense, I think it was very when Atal Bihari Vajpayee came, one of the most fundamental mistakes that happened was that he did not have the power of business behind him. That is why it was easy to bring him down, because there was money power on the other side. Demonetization took that power away in a big way. So in that sense, if I see, I think um, you need to exercise power. You need to have some backup.
Yeah. So, moving on to Adani, the Adani bribery case. Now, America's Justice Department and SEC have targeted India's Adani Group with a bribery case, and they are using nationalistic sentiment. They say, that won't help. Yes, law has been weaponized and India's sovereignty compromised, but not how they think. This is what you have also written in your blog. So, tell me something, Desh. Now, why are they not attacking Ambani? Because see, they were traveling in Ambani's private jets when they were in power. They were using all his facilities. Why have they not spoken a word about Ambani? It's only about Adani all the time.
Yeah, that is a very good question. Like if you go into the 1980s, when Pranab Mukherjee was the finance minister, he brought out three budgets. People say those three budgets were actually brought out for Dhirubhai Ambani. Like, they were tailored for him. So the relationship between power and between the Ambanis has gone back a long time. And they know how to work with different power centers, but they may not work for any of the power centers or even the country as a whole. They'll go along those lines as long as it benefits them. Now, like if you take the Reliance Petrochemicals and how that benefited them as well as India during the whole the Russian thing, that was important and that helped. But to take on large scale projects, that will be very tough, geopolitically very important and strategic, takes a whole different ball game. See, like what I've said in my article, and I think like this is where a lot of analysts have gone wrong, is that there is a so this was a two-part, case. One part is the DOJ, which was a five-count, charges. The five counts were there. One was conspiracy to commit fraud, securities fraud, wire fraud, and then there were three counts of securities fraud itself. Now, this law, the FCPL law itself is very, very clear that if you pay bribery to anyone, then you can be charged. Like one thing. Second part is that you need to have the right kind of internal accounting controls to even take care of that, to ensure that no bribes are paid and all those things. The the thing is, this case, if I look at just this case follows the law. This case is not a single case, like one-off case. If you look at 2023 and 2024, you'll see the similar cases have been filed against SAP. They have been filed against Raytheon. They have been filed against 3M, which are iconic American companies, for simply not keeping the internal accounting in place. Right. So this is actually, they are saying they have paid like bribery here. Now the point that I wanted to make through this was, yes, as a case itself, it is per law. Is law good or bad? That is the discussion that needs to happen. Trump and his team is saying that the entire law is a bad law. Now, that law, does the law go extraterritorial? Does it have extraterritorial jurisdiction? Yes, of course it has. Uh, like, does DOJ require the local courts to indict a person before they can file charges? No, they can do it on their own, and they don't need to care about what the local courts say or do not say. That is how the law is. We can crib about the law, but the case is according to the law. So, and the second thing is that uh, this whole thing is actually taken care by the FBI. Now, when when Biden came, uh, he ensured that the frauds group was part of the DOJ. Now, fraud, the frauds section, or the group that is there, they take care of foreign briberies and all those things. Now, what happened is that FBI is the one which actually gathers the evidence for the DOJ on such cases. FBI does not have extraterritorial jurisdiction to take action. But what it does do is that it has officers called legal attaches in the US embassies who work with the local bodies to go around and get the information on basis of which these cases are filed. Now, they cannot go and hack anyone. One of the important things in DOJ's case was that they said, one, he was sending electronic messages. Sagar Adani was sending, electronic messages. Second, he had, or I think one of the executives had taken a photograph on his phone of the of a page where the bribes were mentioned. And third thing was that PowerPoints and Excel sheets were prepared on their computer. So if you really look at it, they had access to their networks, they had access to their phones, they had access to their computers. That is hacking. That can only happen if either they have taken a unilateral action and went and hacked another country's networks, the telecom networks, the phones of private citizens, and the computers of private citizens, or if the Modi government actually allowed it to happen. The second thing would not have happened. The first thing has happened. That is the attack on India's sovereignty, not the case or the law. The law is the way it is. It has been there for a long time now. I think 2016 it came about. So it has been there for a long, long time. And it has been used in Qatar, it has been used in Brazil, it has been used almost everywhere, even in Japan. The point is that we can argue and we can talk about the law as much as we want. It is what it is, because they have the power of having the money and the power to implement their laws. They cannot go and hack another country's networks, which in this case it is very clear that they have. So yes, CIA could do it, but not FBI. That is what is important. And then the another thing that is important is that people are saying, because this U.S. attorney who actually filed the case, Breon Peace, his wife is actually working in a Soros organization. That is why there is a link. Now, my argument to this is Breon Peace on his own could not have filed the case. Actually, if you look at the entire organization, U.S. attorney, who's part of the federal judicial structure, reports up to the attorney general. Attorney general is actually hired by the president of the United States. So he reports to the president of the United States. Now, this attorney general, Merrick Garland, is notorious for lawfare, using law in warfare. So basically, the Hunter Biden, case that happened, the Trump's Russian collusion thing, all those things that happened were, and like January 6th, actually, all those things were tried, and Trump was tried during his time based on the framework that he had created and the cases that his organization filed, not Breon Peace, but somebody else, right? Now, in this case, and the second thing that he has also done is lawfare can be used against your opposition, political opposition, to disenfranchise them or like bring them down, or against another country where you're not using a military power, but you're using law to as a weapon to bring them down. He has done that also. Actually, he brought a case against RT, Russian Today, uh, to stop them from having a presence in the United States, saying that they were doing propaganda. Really? I mean, is that free speech? They are any, I mean, like, what about your organizations, your news organizations doing that same thing in other countries like Facebook or other things? So the thing is that uh, that person itself is a controversial person. Merrick Garland is a very controversial person who has been called as a corrupt like person, like very aggressive, and who has like made a mess of his own organization. The he's the head of the Department of Justice. Department of Justice, like, is in a mess right now, and that is a reason why the mandate was so strong, because there is no other way to bring this whole cabal down unless and until like we get a new administration within the US, and that is exactly what they're after. So
Yes.
so that was one thing. There was another thing I want to mention before we like move on.
Yeah.
Like a couple of things. Like one is Kenya, which actually did the like which canceled two contracts of Adani. Now, Kenya's President Ruto was actually called for a state dinner in May 2024. He was given all the pomp and show, the way Brits used to declare somebody as Rai Bahadur, and that guy used to feel very important because he would be allowed to meet the viceroy. Like something like that happened with Ruto. He was brought into US, state dinner was given, and like brought in because there is a rivalry between China and the United States within Kenya. Now, India happens to be an irritant for both, but India's thing was taken out because US did not want that to happen. China may have had their own illusions, more own ideas, but they are not the ones who actually affected that. It was US itself. So that is one thing very clear. And last thing I wanted to say is about the Adani. Every country, every power has its main corporations, which are global, which are called in the geopolitical literature as a national champion corporations. US has IBM, Google, Facebook, Coke, and all those things. Japan has Sony and Honda. South Korea has Hyundai and Samsung, and China has Huawei and other like companies. So this company, Adani, like I was saying, like you cannot expect Ambani to be always aligned to what Modi wants as a growth or the strategic path, but Adani is aligned to that, and that is the reason why Soros came out and said we have to bring them down because their fate are intertwined. And if you really look at it, Hindenburg or OCCRP, after that, he had to shelve his funding. So did so exactly the same thing happened now. $600 million of like funding he has to like put away.
Yeah, very interesting analysis, Desh, and you've explained exactly how the tentacles of Soros, goes into every area, and they've studied what can make, if they want, Modi ji weak, and how brilliantly you have assessed that. So thank you for that. Really, very interesting, and I'm sure a lot of people will now look at it in a different way. Now, moving on to America. Now, has Biden declared war against Russia? There was a clear warning from Putin on provision of long-range missiles that we spoke about last week. That these missiles could hit deep into Russia to Ukraine. It would be, considered as a direct attack, you say, by NATO on Russia. And Biden has just done that, is what you say in your blog. Could you explain that, Dish?
Yeah, actually, see, the thing is, Putin was very clear. If the world has not entered the situation where the world war has started, is because Putin has kept the restraint, not the US. Uh, First, he said you cannot come into Ukraine. They did. Then he said you cannot provide them long range missiles. They did. Then they said. Then Putin said they cannot use long range missiles. They did. And then he used his intermediate ballistic missile, the Oreshnik, and tried to actually show them what he could have done. See, like that is why I was saying that that warning was two or three part. One was that it he could have put the nuke in front of it, and like in that Oreshnik, and that would have been a nuke attack. That is one thing. The other thing was that actually attack could have been on any European power or even the US, because the missile itself could go and hit any one of those places. So it was a warning to everyone that if I next time I send out this missile, it can hit any one of you, and it could be a nuclear tipped missile. The thing is that for some reason, Tucker Carlson has talked about this, who's one of the journalists here in the US. He has said that before the Biden administration goes, they have lost all options. All options are closed for them to stay back. They think this is the only way that they can actually stop Trump from doing the purge that he has promised to stop him from doing what he needs to do to bring down the military industrial complex. Because if they start a nuclear war before they leave, then the options that Trump has to stop the war will be very less. And I think like that's where they are going to. And like we have talked about this, the powers of the military industrial complex and deep state will definitely shift from the US to Europe, because Europe still has a constituency for it. US will not after Trump comes in. So if that is the situation, then their space to maneuver and still perpetuate a global war will still be there. It won't be easy, but it still will be there. And but Biden's now they are actually saying that we will actually give the nukes also to Ukraine. If that happens, there is very little chance that a World War III will not start. See, the thing is, in the last few months, what has happened is that there was an exercise that Russia did in Cuba with the submarines. It sent nuclear submarines from the Arctic through the North Atlantic all the way to Cuba. Now they were saying that they could not track a lot of submarines there in North Atlantic. Now in that area, if you really look, then Scotland is the only naval base which can actually fight against the Russians, because that is where the US and the UK have docked their warships. Now Russia, because it has access to the Arctic Circle, it's and like even Kaliningrad is actually very interesting. like it is just after Belarus, but right on the the Barents Sea or Norwegian Sea. So it can, they have placed missiles there. If a missile from Kaliningrad was to be thrown or was to be fired, the access to the time that it takes to get to any of the European countries and the US will be hardly anything, less than 10 minutes. So, so I don't know like what is going on in their mind, why they are doing all this, but they are actually setting the entire world for a big failure. So,
It's very
so
strange,
I,
Desh, because they keep telling other countries don't use nuke power, and they are the first ones to even activate this sort of thought.
yeah, see, that is how it is, right? Like even when it comes to democracy promotion, how many democracies have they really promoted, and how? So democracy promotion is actually a weapon. Similarly, nukes has always been a weapon. Climate agenda is also a weapon. Climate change. It's actually not the climate change which is a problem. It's the climate change agenda which is a problem, because they do whatever they want to do, but they stop the progress of other countries, especially the developing countries, using change agenda as the excuse. That is a problem. So they are not. They'll pay $300 billion. That's what they have said in COP29, which is peanuts for what they have been doing. And they'll stop all the developing countries from using coal. That is what all the developing countries actually use for their power. So they don't want them to progress. They want only themselves to progress. And that has been the biggest problem.
Desh, on another note, before we end, I don't know how you would also see this. The destruction of the Kali temple, you know, and also attacking ISKCON. Now you have Lord Krishna behind ISKCON, and you have Kali Devi, in the temple, and it's also said that see India is very well protected because of the kind of prayers and the kind of Sanatana Dharma that is behind us, backing us, people with good thoughts and mantras and slokas or whatever. So, do you think that whatever they have done in Bangladesh, you know, will hit back at them?
Uh, I think this is a very interesting thought if you look at it from the spiritual standpoint, right? Like from the spiritual standpoint, I always say that oceans never kill anyone. People who are not aligned to the oceans, who do not know how to work the waves, they are killed.
Yes,
People who know how to surf the waves, they can surf 100 feet waves.
yes,
So, if a certain kind of energy has been consecrated in a certain place, especially an energy like the Kali, Devi, then that's a very specific and very potent energy. You don't mess with that, because if you do, then there will be repercussions in many, many different ways that you may or may not be able to handle. So it is easy to say all these things, easy to do all these things, and maybe you can get away initially, but in the end things will start coming. This civilization, this Sanatan Dharma that we have a history of uh, you know some say over 200,000 years. Like if you look at when the Vedas were codified, in that a time frame of 100 years since all this thing has started, Pakistan and all that, is a blip, is less than a blip. So if you look at it from that standpoint, then and even the Western civilization of 300 years is actually a blip. Like we can talk how Western civilization, especially industrial civilization, like industrial like revolution was like brought in because that was based on the loot from India, and that has been established as well. But all this thing will at some point come back to bite the people who have been working this. That is why one of my like biggest worry is that being in America or being in the West, you are actually part of that collective karma.
yeah. Yeah,
So
absolutely. Thank you for that, Desh, and a very
sure.
interesting talk. So we'll see you next week. Good night, Jai
All right.
Hind, and
Jai
Jai
Hind.
Shri Ram.
Thank you.